Hello. Please try to answer. Yeah, anyone.
Ma'am, repair can be just a one-time phenomena where you fix things and healing occurs as an ongoing process thereafter.
Um, Actually, more or less, they are mostly the same. But in when we talk about pathology, so when there healing is mainly used for surface epithelia, and repair is used for connective tissues. So that's just by convention. Otherwise, they are mostly the same. Okay, and they are both ongoing processes, right? So whenever an injury occurs, the cells that are at the site, like you've read about apoptosis and you've read about necrosis. So the cells that are at the site, they'll undergo. So what do you to repair? How does repair happen? So there are two things which mainly contribute to it. So one is there might be some tissues which are indigenous to the site, which are the residual or the uninjured cells, which are still alive. So one is they can start proliferating, and the second is there will be tissues stem cells. So the stem cells they will proliferate whenever there is injury, right? They also proliferate in normal scenario as well, but more activation of stem cells occurs when there is injury and when there is a need for growth. So whenever there is an injury, so depending on the extent of injury, residual or indigenous cells of the tissue as well as stem cells, they both start proliferating. And they both work together to repair damaged tissue. Okay, so we'll talk about it in depth later on. Which cell does what? Okay. So you can see here, so injury, whenever there is an injury, there will be two kinds of responses. One is cellular response, as we already talked. Cellular response would include one is the residual uninjured cells, second is the stem cells, and the third is fibroblast, or later the cells that will lead to formation of connective tissue. The second thing is vascular response. Vascular response because whatever tissue is forming or whatever is happening, they'll need a blood supply, right? So the second thing is a vascular response. So whenever injury happens, there will be cellular and vascular response. So now it depends on what kind of injury is happening. So one is it is acute. It just happened once and then it went away, right? So then it depends to which extent did it happen. So like it was acute, and then if it happens just in a small area, like a superficial wound, or maybe the cells have died but the tissue is still intact, then we can simply have regeneration. So what is regeneration? Like as you can see in the flow chart, but would somebody like to answer what is the difference between regeneration and healing? Please try to answer. I'm not going to give you attendance if you keep behaving like this. I can't be asking you again and again to answer my questions. Yeah, so should I go by names? Okay, who is Dhwani?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please tell me what is the difference between regeneration and healing? Like, what do you think in your own language? Don't just read the slide. Yes.
to replace the thing that
Which
has been damaged.
one means, yeah, which one of them means to replace? And replace it by what? With what?
These cells that have been damaged.
Okay, the cells that have been damaged, that is a normal tissue that will be replaced. But replaced by what? That constitutes the difference between regeneration and healing. So in case of regeneration, they'll be replaced by normal cells or the normal tissue which are at the site. And in case of healing, there can be scar formation and exudate and everything else. Okay, so regeneration only includes normal cells that have regenerated in the normal structure. So the normal structure remains maintained. While healing also includes scar formation or any kind of inflammation which might have happened. Okay, so in case of acute injury, we have got regeneration, healing. Then, if the tissue damage is persistent, if it is happening again and again, then eventually fibrosis occurs, which is a tissue scar. So later on, we will discuss. Okay. Yeah. So when we talk about regeneration, there are various kinds of tissues, right? All the tissues cannot regenerate. So can Garima tell me? Can you name a tissue that regenerates quite easily?
Sorry, ma'am, can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Your voice.
Give me an example of a tissue.
Ma'am, gastric mucosa.
Gastric, like in ulcers, like in
Ma'am, liver.
liver. Yes. So liver is tissue that is a permanent tissue, but still it retains the capacity for regeneration. But what else? What other thing? I mean, a really common thing that happens on day-to-day basis. Skin, right? Epithelia of the skin. And what
Yes,
is the epithelium of the skin? What is the layer? Histology wise?
stratified squamous.
Yeah, stratified squamous.
Keratinized.
Yeah, so keratinized. Okay, so stratified squamous epithelium of the skin, it has a high capacity for proliferation. Apart from that, there are many other tissues which have capacity for proliferation, which include liver, gastric mucosa, even the ductular mucosa, the mucosa of the ducts in various places. So we will talk about them now. So now you know regeneration, and now you know that the regeneration depends on the kind of tissue that is undergoing the injury. Yeah. So that was regeneration. Now there is scar formation. So what happens in scar formation is, if the tissue is incapable of uh, regrowing the cells that have damaged, or the injury is to an extent that it has damaged the entire structure of the tissue as well as the scaffolding of the tissue. So in that case, connective tissue is deposited there, right? Suppose if we talk about liver, suppose there are hepatocytes. So initially the hepatocytes will keep replacing the hepatocytes. But that will only happen to a certain extent. Once it goes on and on, like in case of persistent injury, so after some time, then simply connective tissue starts getting deposited. So when connective tissue gets deposited, like collagen gets deposited, then that leads to scar formation. So in that case, the tissue will lose its function. Okay. So you do understand the difference between scar formation and normal regeneration now, right? And once there is scar formation, once there is fibrosis, sometimes the fibrosis occurs along with inflammation. So in that case, it'll be called organization. So there is something known as organizing pneumonia, which is affecting the lung. So in this case, what happens is there is a lot of inflammation. So there is a lot of persistent injury to the lung tissue. So after that, scar formation starts take place, and it takes a certain pattern. So then it is called an organizing pneumonia, but it is a pathological term, not a clinical term. Okay, so moving ahead. So as it says, we have talked about it before. So regeneration of injured cell tissues, it includes one is cell proliferation, and why and how will cell proliferation occur? So it'll occur by mainly by growth factors. Various enzymes, various growth factors are secreted, which will drive the process, which will start the process. But and what does it depend on? It depends on whatever stem cells are there, whatever uninjured cells are there, and how much extracellular matrix is still there. If there has been too much damage of the extracellular matrix, then there will be fibrosis. If extracellular matrix is retained, only the normal cells are damaged, then there will be proper regeneration. You're following me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As we already talked about this, what are the kinds of cells that will be proliferating? So one is the remnants of the injured tissues. Second is vascular endothelial cell. Why are these necessary? These are necessary in order to provide vessels. If there are vessels, then only there will be nutrients which are needed for repair process. And the third kind of thing is fibroblast. Why is fibroblast needed? Yeah, Anusha Thakur. Yeah, so why do you think fibroblast is needed?
Ma'am, for the matrix.
So when will it be needed? Like is a fibroblast needed all the time in
Ma'am, to
every?
provide strength.
So it'll happen in every injury. That is what you mean to say?
Yes, ma'am, probably.
Acha, theek hai. Okay, so we'll talk about it later. But so initially, fibroblast is needed in every kind of injury. Okay, so once there is injury, once there is a defect, then temporarily fibroblasts, they do come there and they form a granulation tissue. But eventually, the amount of fibroblast that still remains in the injury, that depends on the extent of injury. So in some cases, if the deficit is too less, then only the parenchymal cells will proliferate and they'll fill the gap. So in that case, fibroblasts, they'll get resolved. But if the injury is too much, then parenchyma cells cannot proliferate after a certain extent. So in that case, fibroblasts, they'll be filling up the gap, right? So your answer was essentially correct, that they do come initially in all the kinds of injury. Okay, so there are various kinds of tissues as we have been talking about them. So there are So first we'll talk about labile tissues. So these are labile tissues are, as the name suggests, so these are tissues which continuously they get replaced by proliferation of mature cells. So whatever cell is being lost, it gets immediately replaced. So what do they include? They include hematopoietic stem cells, hematopoietic cells in bone marrow, majority of the surface epithelia. Then there is stratified squamous epithelia, which is in skin, oral cavity, vagina, cervix. So whatever injury happens here, it gets healed very soon. Then there is ducts. There is cuboidal epithelia of the ducts, where everywhere, salivary gland, pancreas, biliary tract. And lastly, there is gastrointestinal tract. There is uterus. So effectively, the epithelia of all the tissue include labile cells. So why is it needed? It is needed because if we can, like, it's very necessary for us to keep the epithelia intact, right? Because if epithelial, there will be injury, then there will be injury to the submucosa and to the other cells in the epithelia, so that healing takes place as soon as possible. So you got the concept of labile tissue?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So next will be stable tissue. So labile tissues were the ones which were continuously undergoing division. Stable tissues, they're normally quiescent, okay, but they are capable of dividing in response to injury or loss. So whenever there is injury or whenever there is loss, they will proliferate. So these include majority of the cells of the body. Right. Like labile stable tissue include parenchyma of most of the injury, right? So there is a difference between labile and stable tissues which you need to remember. So in case of stable tissues, so capacity is only minimal, like it's not to whatever extent labile tissues can proliferate. So like after a certain extent of age, the proliferation will stop. So stable, except for liver, obviously. In liver, it has too much capacity for regeneration, but rest all stable tissues there is limited capacity. And lastly, there are permanent tissues. Okay, so before moving on to that slide, can anyone give me an example of a permanent tissue? Chetna.
Ma'am, heart cells.
Can you give me? Yeah, okay, cardiac cell and brain, right?
Brain cells.
Yeah, that is why whatever pathology happens in the brain, like all those degenerative diseases, or sometimes sometimes a person meets an accident and he suffers irreversible brain damage. So why does that happen? That happens because the cells, they cannot proliferate. So whatever area of that person's brain gets lost, or in case of heart, if we talk about ischemic heart disease, so whatever area gets dead, it is dead permanently. There are certain areas in the brain as well as in can undergo some kind of so that is why they are such vital organs, and that is why the injury to those organs is so vital or crucial. I mean crucial. Yeah. So yeah, commonly differentiated non-proliferative. They include neurons and cardiac muscle. Skeletal muscle can also be classified as a permanent tissue, but they have the satellite cells that represent the intermedial sheets have some capacity. So some repair can happen, but if you are asked about absolutely permanent tissues, they are brain and heart. So in these tissues, yeah. So how do you think repair will happen in these tissues? Like there is injury and some part of it has been damaged. So what will happen there now? Bhavna.
मैम
Hmm.
मैम कैन यू रिपीट क्योंकि मैम आवाज बहुत ब्रेक होके आ रही थी.
Acha, okay. So my question is, in case of permanent tissue, we have been talking ki regeneration.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Human
Ma'am, you're not
tissues ke
audible.
cells tissue. So what will happen? Like
मैम
entirely?
आप
Uh,
मैम आपकी आवाज
I
बीच
don't
में
know.
कट हो गई थी.
अभी आ रही है.
Yes.
Okay, so my question was कि in case of permanent tissues, because the native cells of the tissue, they cannot proliferate. So how do you think proliferation occurs in a permanent tissue if injury has happened?
मैम उसमें तो प्रोलिफरेशन हो ही नहीं पाएगा तो मैम वो
हाँ.
परमानेंटली डैमेज हो जाएगा जैसे
Yeah, and उस एरिया को फिल करने के लिए कौन से सेल्स आएंगे?
फाइब्रोब्लास्ट.
We just talked about them. Yeah,
मैम
okay, yeah. So that is what I wanted you to know ki, because the native cells, they cannot respond, so fibroblast will come in order to seal the gap. So whatever damage is happening, there will be scarred tissue in that area now. Okay, good answer. Yeah. So in permanent tissues, repair is typically dominated by scar formation. So now you know why. Okay. So now we'll talk about what is the process that happens in case of tissue regeneration. So in labile tissues, because we're talking about there is simply proliferation of residual cells as well as stem cells but the basement membrane should be intact. So growth factors are not defined, but they'll mostly include growth factors like colony stimulating factors or other growth factors which are native to the tissues. So like in bone marrow, we've got colony stimulating factors. Like in liver, we have got hepatocyte growth factors. So there are various kinds of growth factors. So labile tissues mein to simply residual cells will start proliferating. Then we'll talk about parenchymal organs. So what happens in parenchymal organs? So वहाँ पे भी growth factors will be produced locally. Plus there will be interaction with extracellular matrix as well. We'll discuss the interactions later, right? So in case of, because there is limited tissue regeneration in stable tissues, so we've got a basic model of the liver, which we'll discuss now. So that you can get an idea कि stable tissues में कैसा होता है. Yeah. So obviously we've been talking about this. There is proliferation of the remaining hepatocytes which have not been injured. Plus there is progenitor cells ka repopulation. So it proliferation of hepatocytes, it can occur following partial hepatectomy. That is, a liver transplant has been much researched upon and it is so successfully done everywhere. So even 90% of liver can be corrected by proliferation, right? So how is it triggered? Again, it is triggered by cytokines and various growth factors. So there are various phases in it. So first is the priming phase. So what is the cytokine that is responsible in this case? There is interleukin 6. So interleukin 6 will be produced by Kupffer cells, and then uh, they will prime the hepatocytes so that they can start receiving the growth factor signals. Right, because we talked about it now, that the cells are normally in quiescent stage, they are in G0 stage. So something has to happen in order for the cells to be primed so that they can proliferate or they can receive the growth factor signal. So interleukin 6 primes them. Then there will be growth release of growth factors like hepatocyte growth factor and TGF alpha. So these are secreted by various cells, like whatever inflammatory cells are there, and even a fibroblast. So they will act on primed hepatocyte and they'll push the cell cycle or the division, right? And because they're quiescent cells, so it'll take them several hours. So eventually they'll go from G0 to G1, and eventually they'll reach the S phase where synthesis of DNA will start taking place. That is a growth factor phase. Okay, so what this is trying to say is that whatever hepatocyte replication is happening, so initially parenchymal cells will replicate like hepatocytes, then there will be replication of non-parenchymal cells as well, like Kupffer cells, endothelial cells, and stellate cells. So obviously, whenever this is happening, there is some kind of change in the genetic basis as well. So many genes start getting activated which are not normally activated, like transcription factor genes, like cell cycle regulators, and energy metabolism. So basically, the cell is pushed towards cell growth rather than from a quiescent stage. And finally, there is quiescence again. So after a certain amount of replication has happened, then there will be termination phase where the return quiescence, right? So the purpose for me to explain this to you was, in labile tissues, directly growth factors will appear. They will push the cycles to push the cells to grow even faster, because those cells was not quiescent, they were already dividing. So it happens ekdam immediately. So that is why whenever you have a cut on your skin, it gets healed almost. The healing starts immediately at least. However, in case of liver, many genetic changes occur. Priming first needs to occur, then the cell where the parenchymal cells themselves proliferate. Here, what they're saying is the injury is too much. So in that case, the progenitor cells will start replicating. We talked about it, right? Either the parenchymal cells replicate or the stem cells replicate. So what about these progenitor cells? What is the name of them? So in some rodents, they are called oval cells. And in human beings, they reside in canals of Hering, right? So this is an exam question. This is asked in competitive exams. So canals of Hering, they have progenitor cells or the tissue stem cells of the liver, right? Any question? Abhi tak we have just been talking about regeneration. Now we'll talk about the proper process of healing or the repair. So any questions till now?
Ma'am, can you explain this canals of Hering? Couldn't get it.
Canals of Hering are simply the site where tissue stem cells are there. Like, because we saw that liver can regenerate, so we wanted to know how is liver regenerating? How is it doing? So found a particular site wherever there is uh, as it says, where bile canaliculi are connecting with the larger bile ducts. So there are canals of Hering. They are small niches. So where there they found progenitor cells. You are getting progenitor cells concept, right? These are
Okay,
basically
ma'am.
stem cells which can proliferate in whatever direction they want to.
Okay, ma'am.
है ना? Okay. Okay. So that was regeneration. Now we'll talk about connective tissue deposition. How does that happen, right? So it occurs by replacement of injured cells with connective tissue. It eventually leads to a formation of a scar. or there can be some amount of regeneration and along with some amount of scar formation as well. But nothing is black and white, obviously, in pathology. So, what happens in a scar formation? So, first of all, whenever there is injury, then there will be inflammation, right? So, inflammatory cells will come there to the site. We'll talk about the steps just in the next slide. What happens after inflammation? So after inflammation, angiogenesis is also important. So okay, so whenever there is injury to a local place, you can see that there is edema, right? And there is edema even when the wound is healing, like in the following 2 to 3 days. So why is it there? So it is partly there because when there is an injury, there will be angiogenesis, that there is new vessel formation. And when the vessels are forming newly, when they are immature, they are generally leaky. So since they are leaky, they keep releasing some amount of fluid into the surrounding. So that is why there is local swelling at the site of wound healing initially, till the time the vessels mature enough, right? So so newly formed vessels are leaky because of incomplete interendothelial junctions, and VEGF is created. So VEGF has two functions. One will be starting the process of angiogenesis, and the second is permeability. So because vessels are leaky, plus because there is production of VEGF, so there is edema, local edema at the site. So till now we've talked about that there is tissue injury, then there is inflammatory response, then there is angiogenesis, and after angiogenesis there starts happening the formation of granulation tissue. So so the granulation tissue is called, I mean, the term was coined initially because of the gross appearance. So grossly, whenever you're injured, before the scab forms, the tissue, it appears reddish colored and granular. So because of the granular reddish appearance, the tissue started being called granulation. So what does granulation tissue, I mean, what does it have? So it has fibroblasts, it has loose connective tissue, it has small leaky vessels, a lot has inflammatory cells, whatever leukocytes are there. Right, so I mean, granulation tissue is a slide that you're asked in the exam. So, like, you're getting the concept of granulation tissue. समझ आ गया है?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So here again, we have talked about the histologic appearance. There is proliferation of fibroblast in new thin-walled delicate capillaries in a loose extracellular matrix with inflammatory cells, mainly macrophages. Macrophages come later. Granulation tissue will eventually, like when the injury is large, the granulation tissue, it eventually fills up the deficit. Okay, so here. So initially there was infection of injury. So this is the area of injury. So first of all, there will be inflammation, which is the first cell to come to any site in inflammation.
Neutrophil.
Neutrophil, yeah. So here you can see neutrophils, right? So initially there will be neutrophils, later on macrophages will also come, later on lymphocytes will also come. So here these are all neutrophils and these are macrophages. So inflammatory cells have come here, then these are the fibroblasts. So fibroblasts, they start coming. These are the vessels which have started sprouting. And here we have got a proper scar formation. But a scar formation takes at least how many days, can someone guess? Complete scar formation?
2 to 3 days.
2 to 3 weeks, actually, 2 to 4 weeks. Like when you have an injury, scab eventually jo form hota hai, and when the area is completely healed, it takes at least a month, right? So here we are talking scar formation. When you said 2 to 3 days, that was mostly true for granulation tissue. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So next. So after scar formation, after granulation tissue, so here there occurs remodeling of connective tissue. So initially everything, whatever is happening there, fibrosis is there, collagen fibers are there, so they are haphazardly arranged. So a tissue cannot function with haphazardly arranged connective tissue, right? So later on, it starts maturing and it starts reorganizing. है ना? Initially scab is like huge, it's ugly looking, but eventually it just shrunkens, right? Eventually. So that happens because there is reorganization and remodeling. And what cell causes it, we'll talk about it later. So lastly, remodeling takes place. Okay, so this is a very hazy picture. So this is a granulation tissue. You're getting it? This granular appearance. Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about this. So whenever there is a wound, can you talk about some factors which affect wound healing? Chetna, I've already asked you, I think. Dhriti.
Yes, ma'am. The
Yeah.
factors that affect.
Yeah. So can you tell me names of some of the factors which will affect wound healing?
Ma'am, growth factors.
Growth factors are the factors which are anyway initiating it, right? So they will
Mm-hmm.
be there in any case. I'm talking about factors like outside factors.
Mm. No, ma'am, I can't think of any.
Okay, so what about nutrition?
Yes, ma'am. Good protein. Matlab, because
Yeah.
they're fibers, so
So good
protein.
nutrition,
Yeah.
then there is good immunity. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on the area as well, right? It
Yeah.
depends on the vascularity of the tissue. Like if the vascularity is almost cut off, then there will be necrosis. We've already talked about it in the last tutorial, right?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
then there are some diseases like diabetes mellitus. So there is delayed wound healing in diabetes mellitus, right? So these are the factors mainly.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So okay, and then there is obviously infection. If there is infection at the site of the injury, or even there is systemic infection, that also prolongs the process of wound healing. Yeah, so there is infection, there is diabetes, there is nutritional status of the person, like protein deficiency, all of that. It will uh, inhibit healing. In that process, so that if there is a scar being formed, that will be relatively weak. If there is fibrosis, it will be lesser than what is needed. So effectively, they are creating havoc on the patient's system. So steroid should be used very cautiously. Then there are mechanical factors. For example, like here we can talk about simply like there is a clean cut wound like from a blade, or there is a laceration in which there is the skin and the underneath connective tissue has just torn apart. So obviously the clean cut wound will be healing sooner. Then there is poor perfusion. For example, in patients who might have arteriosclerosis or even diabetes, may the vessels they have a decreased lumina because of various vascular changes. So even that will be impairing healing. Okay, and lastly, location of the tissue in which injury is occurring is important. For example, any injury which is occurring in liver or maybe gastric mucosa or maybe skin, it will be healed sooner than any injury which is happening in other solid parenchymal tissues. Okay. So now we'll be discussing simply how does a skin wound heals by various steps, right? This all based on nature. Okay, this all we have discussed. So yeah, can anyone explain what is healing by primary intention versus secondary intention? Yeah, primary versus secondary intention. Okay, it's fine. So healing by primary intention or the first intention. So this happens whenever there is a clean cut wound. The wound is uninfected, and the incision, it can be approximated by surgical sutures. So the disruption in the skin epithelia that has occurred, it is a small disruption. Still, both the edges of the wound are close together so that they can be approximated, and it is an uninfected wound. So in that case, the healing will be by first intention. So there is focal disruption of epithelial basement membrane and death of few cells and few connective tissue cells. So in this case, there will be simply inflammation first, like as we have already talked, then there will be proliferation of epithelial and connective tissue cells, then there will be maturation of the connective tissue. This is first intention. Yeah. So here, hmm. So like this is first intention, this is second intention. So what happens in second intention? In second intention, there is maybe infection at the site, there is maybe a large laceration, or the wound edges, they are far apart, or the amount of necrosis and the injury is too much. In that case, there will be a lot of scarring, a lot of granulation tissue, and the scab will be larger. So that will be secondary intention. As you can see, the the amount of injury is too much, right? The edges are too far apart to be approximated. So that is why the scab, or initially the clot, it is larger. The inflammation is more intense. The granulation tissue is larger, and eventually it will lead to local wound contraction. Like even you might have noticed from childhood, if you had a large injury on your body, effectively there occurs a certain depression in that area. Why did that happen? Because normal connective tissue and normal epithelium of the skin, it was all there, but the injury was too much. So there was a scar formation there, and effectively the scar contracted. So like there is a depression here. So that is actually healing by second intention, secondary intention or second intention. And in case of primary intention, there will be a scar formation, but it will be local, and which will effectively only cause it will, I mean, effectively normal tissue will come at the site of the injury, and it will replace the connective tissue. And if there is a connective tissue, it is very less. So this is an exam question, you are asked about it, the kinds of wound healing. You should be clear about it. Okay. So can somebody summarize for me? I mean, what will be the points that you will talk about? Anshita.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what are the points of differences in primary and secondary intention of healing? Can you summarize it?
Ma'am, primary intention of healing happens in epithelial cells,
Okay.
and the secondary intention of healing happens when there is exaggerated infection or a deeper laceration.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
fibroblasts are more involved in secondary intention.
Yeah. Yes. And
Ma'am, that is all I could understand.
Array, inflammation is more, granulation tissue is more, scar is more, contraction is more. Like these
Yes,
are
ma'am.
just all the
Scar
points,
formation
right?
is more in
Hmm.
secondary.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
basically यही है इसमें. But again, it is asked, so you should know. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So okay. So now we'll talk about the process step by step. So as we were so kabhi bhi if you have an injury, so what happens first? There is some kind amount of bleeding which then stops, right? So what leads to stoppage of bleeding? There is activation of the coagulation pathway, right? So once there is activation of coagulation pathway, there will be a local blood clot formation on the wound surface. So what will be the clot having? It'll have red cells, fibrin, fibronectin, and complement proteins, right? So what is the function of the clot? So one is it has stopped the local bleeding. Second, it provides a scaffold. I mean, it provides an area where all the migrating cells they can come, and it is a local area where there are a lot of growth factors, cytokines, and all, so that the cells will keep coming into the area in order to facilitate healing. So we talked when we talked before, we talked about inflammation, right? So even before inflammation, clot formation occurs. So first there was clot formation, then VEGF was released. So release of VEGF would lead to increased vascular permeability of the existing vessels, and it will lead to new vessel formation as well in the area. Okay, so neutrophils appear within 24 hours. Now, all these timings, now you're asked about these in competitive exams. So these are all MCQs. So within 24 hours, neutrophils come, right? So they'll start migrating towards the clot. So once they come, they'll release enzymes. So whatever debris, whatever necrotic cells are there, they'll be removed. Then we have been talking like the residual cells, they'll also start proliferating. So what are the residual cells in the skin? Basal cells. So the basal cells, they start showing mitotic activity. That is, they start undergoing cell cycle. So after 24 to 48 hours, the epithelial cells, they start migrating towards each other and the basal membrane, it starts forming. So till now, till 24 to 48 hours, we have mainly neutrophils. Then macrophages start appearing. By day 2, macrophages start appearing, and by day 3, neutrophils are gone and they have been replaced by macrophages. So after that, I mean day 2 to 3 pe granulation tissue, it has started forming. So what will macrophages do? As we all already know, they will clear up the extracellular debris, the fibrin, and they will they will release certain growth factors and enzymes which will lead to angiogenesis and extracellular matrix deposition. So now at the incision margin, we have a certain amount of granulation tissue, right? So along with granulation tissue, epithelial cell proliferation is also happening. Okay. So again, this is an MCQ. Neovascularization reaches its peak on day 5. And by day 5, almost the entire of the space has been replaced by or has been filled by granulation tissue. So the granulation tissue is edematous. We have already talked about it. And what are the chemokines that are involved in this granulation tissue? TNF, PDGF, TGF beta, and FGF, fibroblast growth factor. Uh, yeah. So these are the factors which are leading to migration of fibroblast, right? And then these are the factors which will lead to further proliferation of the fibroblast. Platelet-derived growth factor, epithelial growth factor, tissue growth factor beta, fibroblast growth factor, and interleukin-1 and tissue necrosis factor. Okay, so you are following me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है, so अभी तक क्या क्या हुआ है? अभी तक there was a clot formation, there was activation of coagulation pathway, then the neutrophils came, then the neutrophils started being replaced by the macrophages. So when macrophages had come, at the same time granulation tissue starts getting formed, and at the same time neovascularization is happening. So granulation tissue के साथ ही fibroblast का proliferation has been happening, and now here we are talking about all the chemokines that are involved in migration and proliferation of the fibroblast. So now what do the fibroblasts do? They will produce extracellular matrix proteins, and effectively this protein along with the collagen fibrils, they will start to bridge the incision or bridge the gap that had occurred because of injury. Okay, so effectively epidermis will recover the normal thickness because the epithelial cells were also proliferating. So by second week, there is collagen accumulation and fibroblast proliferation, and by second week, there is a lot of collagen accumulation, fibroblast accumulation, but leukocyte infiltration and edema, they have decreased. Vascularity had already reached the peak by 5th day, right? So by second week, vascularity is also, it's over. So obviously edema is over because the vessels have matured. So here the process of blanching begins. Blanching is wahi, certain depression and certain loss of color in the area. So after the after the second week, there is increased collagen deposition or increased scarring in the tissue. So here they're talking about blanching. So there is increased collagen deposition and regression of vascular channels. So by the end of first month, the scar is finally complete. And what does the scar have now? So we started with inflammatory cells and a lot of blood vessels, and here eventually we have ended up at a scar which has a cellular connective tissue. So there are cells, that is fibroblast, there is connective tissue, that is a lot of collagen and fibrosis, but there are no inflammatory cells, and epidermis is almost, so there is no clot as well. It has been resolved and replaced The debris have been resolved and replaced. But so the epidermis is almost normal, but the dermal appendages, because they did not have endless regenerative capacity, so the appendages have been destroyed in the area. So the strength will keep increasing with time. So this was healing by primary intention. I mean, is it clear? Like if you read it once or twice more, I think it'll be more clear. Yeah. Do you have any doubts? Any question?
And these dermal appendages mean the hair on skin.
Yeah, all the hair, the sebaceous glands and the sweat glands, all of them. जो भी dermis वाला area होता है ना, वहाँ पे. Because they don't have the capacity for regeneration ना, मतलब थोड़ा बहुत होता है, but like since the injury is more, so they are destroyed mostly in that particular area.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, तभी like if you ever see a scar somewhere on somebody's body, so generally उस पे hair growth नहीं हो रही होती. The scar is just a fibrotic or hard tissue, right? Next time you can notice it now. Okay. So next is healing by second intention. So when we've already spoken about it, the cell or tissue loss is more extensive, like abscess, ulceration, and ischemic necrosis. The processing involves combination of regeneration and scarring. So the scarring is more in secondary intention. Okay, so we've already talked about it. Fibrin clot is larger, there is more exudate, there are more necrotic debris, there is more intense inflammation. So, yeah. So in case of healing by secondary intention, because there is more of scarring. So we have described the scarring here. So initially the provisional matrix has fibrin, fibronectin and type 3 collagen. So this process is actually common to both healing by primary and secondary intention. Okay. So here we've just talked about the scar. What does the scar contain? So initially the scar contains fibrin, fibronectin and type 2. Primarily there is type 1 collagen. This is again an MCQ question. 2 weeks के बाद type 1 collagen होता है, initially type 3 collagen होता है. You must remember it. Then eventually the granulation tissue, okay, this is the scar. Yeah, so the scar is pale, the scar is avascular, it has spindle shaped fibroblast, dense collagen, elastic tissue and other ECM components. So wound contraction generally occurs in large surface wounds. So contraction से क्या होता है? The gap which had occurred in the injury, it has been decreased. So what are the cells which mainly are involved in contraction? Myofibroblast. Okay. So granulation tissue में what were the cells mainly there? Fibroblast. And contraction में myofibroblast are there. So myofibroblasts are intermediary cells which are basically modified fibroblasts. So they have functions of both fibroblast as well as smooth muscle. So within 6 weeks, effectively, large skin defects may be reduced to 5 to 10% of their original size by contraction. Okay, so till now we have been talking about the normal process of wound healing. So next we'll talk about what happens if there is exaggerated healing, right? So yeah, can anyone give me an exaggerated healing? Okay, how many students are there in your tude batch?
31 to 60.
30. Achha, these are the roll numbers.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I should have gone with roll numbers then. I would not have had to change the screens. Okay, anyway. So yeah. So exaggerated scar formation. Anyone? Robbins में last में दिया हुआ है ना? Okay. Hypertrophic scar, keloid. पढ़ा है कुछ? You know you can say no when I ask
We
you.
haven't read the wound healing part till yet.
Asha, you haven't. So like these are tutorials. These are not tutorials. Like you're not supposed to come here after having read it. But I'm actually asking you, not scolding you.
Ma'am, actually there was no lecture for this topic, so we
Acha,
thought,
okay. So like it's like completely new to you.
yes, ma'am.
ठीक है फिर तो मतलब it even it is even more important. So कुछ clear हुआ है ना? Like it is clear, right? Like I myself prefer face-to-face teaching than this online thing. I don't trust it much, but I hope कुछ तो समझ आया होगा तुम लोगों को. So anyway, so the last thing here is keloid and hypertrophic scar, which is again an exam question. You are asked about the difference between the two. So both keloid and hypertrophic scar, these are uh, exaggerated scarring at the site. So what leads to exaggerated scarring at the site? It's not completely known. I mean, the factors which are leading to them are not completely known. So, but there are certain factors which predispose to these conditions. For example, in scar. So keloid scar is mainly seen in families. So it is familial. It is more seen in black females. That too adult population, 10 to 30 years. Okay, these include adolescents and adults. So it mainly occurs in the areas of sternum, shoulder, and face. And even in face, it occurs near the ear wala area. Okay. But the etiology is obviously unknown, right? So a keloid scar will always outgrow the wound area. So, I mean, it will go above and beyond the normal wound area. Even it will start growing on the normal adjacent tissue as well. And it does not subside. A keloid will eventually require surgery, right? So you can get a short note on keloid and you can get this comparison as well. But in case of hypertrophic scar, so hypertrophic scar is not familial, it is not race related. So there are no such predisposing conditions, but it is normally seen more in children. And whenever there is a increased tension in the area during the injury. So for example, a child got injured on the flexor side of the limb with increased tension. So there was a prolonged tension at the area. So in that case, he will have a hypertrophic scar. So hypertrophic scar is a scar which has exceeded the amount of normal scarring that should have taken place at the site. But it remains within the wound. जितना wound का area है उतने ही area में रहेगा hypertrophic scar and वो eventually subside भी कर जाएगा with time. ठीक है? Keloid ने एक्सीड करा था वोंड एरिया को. हाइपरट्रोफिक स्कार का नॉर्मल स्कार से अमाउंट ज्यादा है बट इट रिमेन्स विद इन द वोंड. सो इज इट क्लियर?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है. So yeah, you should know this question. These sites particularly, these are asked. Face के साथ remember ear as well. Okay. This is also a very important MCQ question. Keloid scar. Okay. So is there a file section here? Like I'm supposed to upload this presentation to the file section. Like, do you guys know where is it?
Ma'am, it's on the mobile phone only.
क्या?
मैम मोबाइल फोन पे पता है.
अच्छा नहीं, ये तो मतलब it's on a Mac. As usual Mac में कुछ नहीं पता लगता है. Device settings. अच्छा कोई बात नहीं. I think there is a mail
मैम
ID ना,
टीम्स
उस पे
पे
क्या